Hello and welcome back to my humble show. So, no fancy footwork, no dancing around the details. I'm just going to share some information with you and you can decide what to do with it. Seeing as how Candace Owens has been investigating TPUSA and more specifically Erica Kirk, I would say she has been smearing her for quite some time now. I have been doing a little bit of digging, not investigating, because who am I? Who is she? But I'm going to read some information for you, and like I said, do with it what you may. Like, subscribe, and enjoy the ride. While you're at it, I do appreciate it. I have much more which I am going to be digging into and discussing with you in the days to come. Fingers crossed. Haven't been very good at uploading content consistently, but silly me, I try and try. And so that's just what I'm going to do now. I'm going to read through this article I found published through Stanford Advocate. I'll pull it up here in just a moment. This is in regards to Candace Owens. So how I found this article was by going to Google just yesterday and searching Candace Owens' name during the time frame of, say, 2015, 2016, because that's when she was heavily involved in social autopsy, courtesy of Degree 180, some projects she was working on. She was the creator of, essentially, and that did not go so well for her, and here she is today. Here I am today covering this, and feel free to disagree with me. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you know. I'm not going to spend too much time going through this because, like I said, there's so much more digging to do. Some of it I have already done, and I'm going to spread it out over the course of various videos, so yeah, stick around for that. Here's an original victim statement from Candace Owens from back on March 5 of 2016. At the end of it, she promoted her new website, Social Autopsy, which she misspelled as Social Auto Spy. I spy with my little eye. Yeah, not all that original if you think about it, because this was published about 9 years after the events which it refers to, but there's not a lot to be found as far as I can see. Going back further than this, Candace Owens was a high schooler when she first made her way onto the public stage, into the scene, the crime scene, so to speak. All right, pulling this letter up. An open letter from Candace Owens, again published through Stanford Advocate. Stamford, Connecticut was where she went to high school, and she starts out, "Dear Connecticut, do you remember me? 9 years ago, I was a senior at Stanford High School on the brink of a life-altering event. One night, as I sat watching a movie, a group of anonymous boys called my cell phone and left me a series of voicemails. Their words, to this day, represent the most horrific..." There's a typo there. I believe she meant to say horrific thing, but she said horrific that I have ever heard uttered against another human being. They started off by telling me that they were going to kill me just because I was black. They warned me that if they found me at home, they were going to unload a bullet into the back of my head. They cited other N-words, I'm not going to say that word, who had died before me, like Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. They threatened to tar and feather my family. Let me just say that, speculation considered, there's a way to read this in which she literally sounds like the original Jussie Smollett. You know, this is MAGA country. So these white guys, presumably, were calling her the N-word, threatening to kill her, saying she was going to die like those black people before her, Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. Okay. A lot of the documents assuming there were documents, were sealed because she was a minor at the time. So there's only so much to find. And I always gave her the benefit of the doubt on all these details because why wouldn't I? But of course, now that she has begun to do nothing but question the official narrative, why shouldn't we? Why should we question all the official narratives except for her own? And this is just the beginning of her lengthy, illustrious, I would say, grifting career. Whether or not she was grifting here, I can't say. I'm just saying what it sounds like to me in one potential interpretation. Also worth noting that she later went on to do many Fox News hits, one in which she said that she didn't experience racism when she was young. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, but she said, I just didn't see racism like this when I was a kid.
If the old way worked, I mean, I think there's wisdom to that. If Obama worked, oh, yeah.
He's got to be talking about Obama.
I respect that.
If the old way worked, who came before Trump?
Right. It was Obama, and Obama did a lot to tear this country apart. I do not remember when I was growing up having all of these race issues, okay? I really don't remember it. And then suddenly towards the end of Obama, we started hearing all of this rhetoric drummed up. It became white versus black all over again. And I say all over again, I shouldn't even say that because when I was alive, this was not an issue.
By the way, I totally forgot to mention it while recording, so I'll just add this little snippet in. Candace Owens eventually made buck off her high school debacle, or at least her family did, as you can see in this other Stanford Advocate article. Owens' family sued the Stanford Board of Education in federal court, claiming the city didn't protect her rights. Eventually, the board paid $37,500 to settle the case. I'm not sure if she was still a minor when this took place. I mean, that might explain why her family was suing on her behalf. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. But either way, interesting how she didn't talk about this in her open letter or her TED Talk, I don't believe, or at any other time for that matter. You have to read up on additional articles. But yeah, where did that money go? If her family sued, did they get the money or did she get the money? And if they got the money, what did they do with it? If she got the money, what did she do with it? Put it towards college? That's possible. But I'm left to speculate because she doesn't really talk about her family all that much at all. She's too busy talking about Erica Kirk's family and the families of everyone else she wants to smear. I'm not trying to throw anybody else under the bus here, just Candace Owens, because she deserves it. But I'm just making note of the fact that her very first publicity, stunt or not, was very lucrative for at least her family, if not her directly. It is interesting that someone so traumatized by attention has sought only attention for the rest of her adult life thus far. I'm not saying that's not a pattern of traumatization, but come on. At best you can say she was once bullied and therefore she's now a bully. Anyway, scrolling up to the top of this article, the title is, "We Were Children. I Wasn't the Only Victim." And one more example, also from Stanford Advocate. Owens' family sued the City Board of Education, which later paid $37,500 to settle the case. Settlement was reached. I don't know if that played into the closing, the sealing of the documents, or if it's just the fact that she was a minor. You tell me, you're the expert. Candace Owens sues BLT over dangerous mold in luxury apartment. That's an entirely different story about her. An even more amusing one, if you ask me. But let me proceed with caution. Get back on track here. Now for the rest of the story. There's no denying that over the years, she went from making her way onto the TED Talk stage to talk about how she was a victim, to later on becoming a very, very prominent anti-BLM voice, which, hey, I in large part supported her on. It's just that nowadays she has taken things quite a ways further than that, and she has kind of done a bit of a 180, a degree 180, pun intended, and turned back away from conservatism, which she clearly is no longer invested in at all. Unless you want to say she puts the con in conservatism. I believe that she was a con all along, or at least at some point after this. But let me read on here. She said, "I remember feeling shocked and scared because I could think of not a single person, much less a group of them, who wanted to watch me die. I was reluctant to report it, but the next day a teacher insisted I tell the school principal. Someone else convinced you to play the victim. Whether you were or not, just saying. Just saying. And if you are among the remaining members of the Candy crowd, the Candy crew, the Candy cult, it's hard for me to give the benefit of the doubt to someone who gives no one the benefit of the doubt. Simple enough, right? Reading on here. And then nothing was ever the same. By some random stroke of misfortune, one of those involved was Governor Donnell Malloy's son, a boy I had never laid eyes upon. Malloy was mayor of Stamford at the time, and for obvious reasons, the mixture of politics and race proved irresistible to journalists. How convenient. Soon my face was plastered on the front page of every newspaper across Connecticut, and everyone from the NAACP, whom she went on to be very critical of, to Dr. Phil wanted in on this story. There's actually a photo of her in a press conference with some of those NAACP officials from back in the day. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. All right, so here it is, or at least part of it. There's a side-by-side here. This is not what I was looking for. But this, yeah, side-by-side. Her here with NAACP officials over here. Later on, she was testifying in front of Congress, pretty much from the opposite side of the political spectrum. Take that for what it's worth, but I pulled that from this article here, National Conservative article from December 9 of 2025, titled Becoming Based Black Girl. This actually goes through many of the significant events in her life, different allegations against her, allegations she has made, lawsuits, projects, political, and some which were not necessarily political. Oh, look. Here is the photo I was looking for. There you have it. And that's back in 2007. Candace Owens with the NAACP, as I said. But no need to get into the details at the moment, because I'm going to finish reading this article. Candace Owens asks, "Do you vaguely recall me now?" She wants to know. Do you recall her? She wanted to be known then, and she wants to be known now. That's my conclusion. The connection meant that arrests would not immediately be made. The local police told me they needed to treat the case with special diligence, and they called in the FBI to help determine whether the 4 boys, 3 of whom were perfect strangers to me, had committed a hate crime. I guess the question I would have is, if they were strangers to her, was she a stranger to them? Like, strangers would mean that she didn't even know what they looked like, right? Did they know what she looked like? They would have to in order for them to know that she was black and therefore attack her on that basis. I'm just thinking out loud here. I don't know the answers to so many of these questions I'm asking because not a lot is known other than her side of the story. I just find it interesting that she made her first claim to fame by either playing or being the victim, only to go on to fight so ruthlessly against victim culture. But of course, she would say that somewhere along the way she converted to conservatism, though she's not exactly conservative anymore, is she? If anything, she has spite for the right. She wants Republicans, conservatives to lose. That is clear to me. That's clear to see. I mean, just watch the trailer that she released just the other day. Her new docuseries on Erica Kirk, Bride of Charlie, which is literally just more podcasts. Podcasts just like the one she was already recording before she went on hiatus for a couple of weeks. Again, there were no conservatives featured in that little hit piece trailer. Just a bunch of pro-Palestinian libertarians and such. I found that interesting as well. Worth noting, she has burned bridges with pretty much every conservative entity she has worked for and been fired from. Oh, hey, Birdie. We have a special appearance from Miss Birdie. Anyway, what was I saying? Take that for what it's worth as well. I don't have a bridge to sell you here. I'm just thinking out loud, trying to share more facts than feelings with you, because some would say facts don't care about your feelings, and I would generally agree. But Candace Owens says feelings don't care about your facts. That seems to be her entire ideology these days, and I cannot get with that. So I'm going to give you a piece of my mind, but it's based upon what I find. I can't read anybody's mind. I wouldn't expect you to either. So we just have to assess the situation to the best of our ability. Again, the FBI ended up involved in this situation, so serious stuff, right? But let me read that last little stanza again, just so we understand what we're reading. The connection meant that arrests would not immediately be made. The local police told me they needed to treat the case with special diligence, and they called in the FBI to help determine whether the 4 boys, 3 of whom were perfect strangers to me, had committed a crime. A hate crime, to be exact. Ooh. Sorry, I keep derailing myself here, but I believe I read elsewhere that Candace Owens herself was arrested once. But that was when she was a minor. Minor details. The boy I believed had orchestrated the voicemails. The only one out of the group whom I had ever seen or spoken to denied the allegations vehemently, perhaps rolling the dice that his chance political association would protect him in the end. So that actually answers some of my previous questions. She says only one of those boys out of the group she had ever seen or even spoken to. And he denied the allegations vehemently. So that would be his side of the story. Sort of a he said, she said. I wonder if DEI played a role in any of this. How do we know the race of those other boys? How did she know? And how did they know hers? I guess if the one boy had seen her, he would know, and he could pass the word along, tell a friend to tell a friend sort of thing. But I just have so many questions, and if you know of an actual official story, not just a narrative, but a story that's out there, other than Candace herself sharing her own side of the story, let me know, because all I've ever seen about it is her talking about it, including in a TED Talk. So this situation wasn't necessarily political, but she does mention political association because of the status of the one boy whose dad was in the government. She continues here. I stayed out of school for 6 weeks before formal charges were filed, and in that time, the gossip escalated. That's ironic because her entire podcast is gossip. These days especially. And hey, you might say I'm doing the same thing, but I'm literally reading her story, her words. What is she reading? Who are her sources? Because so many times she says, I heard from this person, I heard from that person. I've been told this, I've been told that. I have reason to believe, I have proof of, I have something. Anything she can use to paint a certain picture, which is no way to conduct an investigation, if you ask me. She says, I perused those words quietly, a stranger to the girl that the unsympathetic portion of you were depicting. I was a liar. I just wanted money. I was ugly. I was desperate for attention, another black girl taking advantage of a situation. I was a lot of bad things all at once. No one seemed to see me as a 17-year-old girl going through a traumatic experience. And even if it was indeed traumatic, that could explain some things, could it not? She is suffering the side effects of PTSD, I guess. I don't know. Hey, listen. I don't know why I need to keep repeating myself. The woman is implicating hundreds of people, thousands of people in murder, in an assassination. This woman would have us believe that TPUSA, Erica Kirk herself, the widow of the deceased Charlie Kirk, conspired with military leaders, the White House even, because the federal government, so many different branches, so many different countries. The French Foreign Legion, Mossad, IDF in Israel, who knows? A bee cult, boys in red shirts, people in tunnels underneath the campus in Utah. It just goes on and on and on. So, if you think that that's fine, but what I'm saying is not, you need psychological help, to say the least. I digress. She said, those words destroyed me. Which again is ironic considering how many destructive words she says these days. I held my head high at school, but I went home and cried every single night. I just scrolled back up because I remember reading that she stayed out of school for 6 weeks before formal charges were filed. Also, she went to school every day. Or at least she says, I held my head high at school, but I went home and cried every single night. Maybe I'm stuck on semantics here, but what would Candace do? Without my consent or involvement, political forces took sides. The NAACP held press conferences outside my high school, which I reluctantly attended. It's tough to tell from a photo, so we'll leave that one up in the air. But she goes on, Malloy's political enemies seized the opportunity to criticize him. Within my own family, lines were drawn. My father wanted to press charges. My mother just wanted to keep quiet so I could return to normal life. So this was when she was 17. She said on Russell Brand's podcast one time that her parents kicked her out of her home when she was 14, and she went to live with a boyfriend. I don't know how long that lasted, but regardless, if she's even telling the truth, she had a bit of a tumultuous bringing up within her own home. But here she says, my father wanted to press charges. My mother just wanted to keep quiet so I could return to normal life. And all I wanted was an apology. I wanted someone to be accountable, admit they had made a big mistake, and just say sorry. But to this day, no one has. Not even our governor, who at the time had no comment other than that his son had been fully cooperative with the police. And so what was my takeaway? I hated Stanford. I hated Connecticut. But above all else, I hated myself. I hated that my name would come up in a Google search for hate crime. Well, she kind of changed the narrative on that one, since you might see her listed under hate crime, but it would be because she was, criticizing the coverage of different hate crimes. I developed a severe eating disorder. To help me combat it, the skin against my bones for 5 years helped me to feel as though I had at least one aspect of my existence under control. After college, I moved to New York City and disappeared into its masses. The city was much too fast-paced for anybody to stop and take notice of me, much too distracted by its own idiosyncrasies. I felt lonely, and my God, it was magnificent. So you enjoyed feeling lonely. And yet now all you do is accrue attention for yourself. Square that circle. For the first time, I was given an opportunity to grow up, to remember who I was, absent the inked impressions of a judgmental community. In the city, I emerged as a woman with a deep love and appreciation for children and a raw understanding of how fragile they are. And I looked back on my high school experience with just that realization. We were children. I say we because I wasn't the only victim. I wasn't the only child who had to read your words. The 4 boys who left me those messages were labeled racists, which, according to you, they were. They were labeled no good. Those are the words that no child deserves to hear. Here's where the shift began, and this shift could be heard in her TED Talk as well, when she starts off with, I was a victim, and then ends with, but the villains are also the victims. If there's a father, forgive them for they know not what they do mentality at play, I'm always going to respect that. But I just have a hard time finding any of this authentic, especially considering this letter was written in part to promote the project she was working on. Social Autopsy, a website which was designed to fight cyberbullying, yet it ended up producing more opportunities for cyberbullying, and in response to it, Candace Owens and her gal pals just acted like a bunch of trolls and crashed their own server, so to speak. I'd argue that she was single-handedly responsible for that downfall, though. Have no fear. She met Charlie Kirk and was hired on the spot. Worst decision he ever made, considering she's now attempting to burn everything he built to the ground, along with his own widow, in his absence, in the name of being his friend. I reiterate, she was taking issue with people, or at least children, being labeled racists, of course. Now, she keeps claiming that people want to enslave her, namely the Jews. They want to enslave her. Daily Wire wanted to enslave her. Ben Shapiro wanted to enslave her. She makes all sorts of comparisons between her and literal slaves, which I think is a slap in the face to those aforementioned slaves. But hey, she's a depraved lunatic, and that's what depraved lunatics do. They slap all the wrong people in the face. Suddenly, I found myself wondering, with a sympathetic heart, so now she's just sympathetic, what happened to them? Had they maybe developed eating disorders as well? Or did they instead turn to drugs to numb the pain? Did they too feel paralyzed with anxiety by the idea of a simple Google search? Had they also tried to kill themselves a year later in their college dorms? Why don't you ask them? You're so good at looking into everyone's lives. Why don't you ask them? Instead of just wondering loud in an article meant to promote yourself and your new platform. Clearly presenting yourself as this sympathetic figure who went from being a victim to being a survivor to being pretty much a superhero. Why don't you just ask them? Why don't you revisit your own childhood, so on and so forth, and pick up and put those pieces together instead of tearing the lives of others apart? That would be my advice to her. Not that she's listening to me. Connecticut, do you remember any of us? I do, and I'll be the first to say I am sorry. Oh, whoa. So now you're sorry, even though you were the victim. To all of them for having to endure that experience. A group of children dissected and labeled. Were they wrong? Categorically. Should they have been held accountable for their actions? Undeniably. Wait, what? Did they deserve to be branded by a society? No. They did, but they didn't. So they were wrong, categorically. And they should have been held accountable. Undeniably. But they didn't deserve to be branded by society. I get it. Some local problems need to remain local problems. They don't need to become national problems, but I wouldn't know anything about this if not for all the times in which she went on to talk about it. I'm just saying. I know there were some press conferences which you cannot find the footage for online. If you found it, let me know. I've been looking for it. I cannot find it. All I found is that one photo, which has made its rounds over the years. I can't find footage of the press conferences. Many statements other than hers. So it's possible that she made it more of a story than it needed to be every step of the way. And she has downplayed it every step of the way by suggesting that, it was her principal or her parents or the local officials or the governor or whoever else who amplified the situation, in which case, why would she be apologizing for it? It just seems to me like she has main character syndrome, and she is spinning a story in whatever way she feels will shed the most spotlight on her. But she says they did not deserve to be branded by a society, even though she has been branding everyone she hates as of late, which is a lot of people. We are a generation of lab rats, a generation that participated as the world speeded up. Sped up? Speeded up. She says speeded up. We laughed at our ability to shoot messages through thin air in a matter of nanoseconds, never stopping to consider the implications. We were the white mice at the turn of the century, in which technological advances made us infinitely more capable and definitively less human. We no longer have to look someone in the eye to say something awful. We no longer have to watch their faces flush with hurt or their eyes flood with tears. We just push send. For the last year, I have worked on creating a website. Here's where the promotion comes in. socialautopsy.com that will stop online bullying by outing the bullies. I created a searchable database of people who spew hate online. So a doxing website, basically. They argued at the time that it was not meant for that purpose, but they didn't really know what they were doing. And that's exactly what they were doing. I hope it will make people think twice before they exercise their First Amendment rights online as a means to hurt others. And this wouldn't be fun without a public challenge to Governor Malloy to contact me, to look me in the eye for the first time and stand with me as a leader in the fight against online bullying. So she wanted this story to disappear, but 9 years later, she's regurgitating it and asking for the governor to contact her and to stand with her, to look her in the eye and help her with her project. Make that make sense. I am once again so happy to be part of Connecticut, my home state, and one that I believe will be part of a real solution. Not just another perpetrator of divisive arguments. Sincerely, Candace Owens. Safe to say she has left Connecticut long behind. But yes, this was published March 5 of 2016, updated later that day. Happy to be a part of Connecticut. Let me just check something here. Earlier she said she hated Connecticut. Of course, that could just be a stepping stone. And then she asks the question, Connecticut, do you remember any of us? So she wants to be remembered. She wants the other individuals involved to be remembered. She wishes it were never a story, but she wants the story to be remembered. Or at least she did. I don't really know. Make of all that what you will. I will have more to say about related topics tomorrow or whenever. Time will tell. So much to get into in regards to Degree 180, social autopsy, so on and so forth. She worked for PragerU. She worked for Turning Point USA. She worked for Daily Wire. She was involved in many controversies along the way. And I'm going to dig in and cover them because she's unfortunately very relevant, even on the right still, supposedly. I think a lot of her stands aren't actually right or remotely conservative. I think they are instigators, opportunists, some on the left even who actually hate the right and want to see the divide continue. Maybe they're drama queens like her. They get a rise off of her digging through the archives of family lineage and genealogy to the point where, Candace Owens is kicking dirt on the great ancestors of Erica Kirk. I said the other day that she's digging so deep that she's chipping her fingernails on the bones of Erica Kirk's ancestors, and safe to say they're all rolling over in their graves right now. Erica Kirk's mother is sort of on her deathbed, not doing too well, and yet Candace Owens is even taking shots at her. The only motive she's exposed in all of this is her own, but I'm just looking back specifically into Candace Owens and her history so I can lay it all out on the table, let the people decide for themselves, and none of this, we're getting close to something big. Tune in tomorrow. Tune in tomorrow, but it'll be more of this, so you're welcome. Keep in touch, keep in tune. New content is coming soon. Peace.